Hello everyone, today we are diving into tips to improve your gameplay. Almost daily on my streams I get a bunch of questions from different rating ranges with different problems, and what I thought I would do is compile a bunch of those questions and make into a video giving you guys my advice. Now, I'm not saying that my advice is correct or the only way to go about improvement. These are just tips that personally I have found to be helpful, not only in my own chess journey, but also passing it on to students and just answering people on stream every day that do come in and ask these questions. So let's dive into it. The first question I get, the most common, is how long will it take for me to reach a certain rating or to earn a title? And honestly, for this question, I always say that I can never answer that question for you. And honestly, you can't really answer that yourself. You can set a timeline, you can give yourself a due date for when you want to reach something, but you never really know how long it's going to take you to reach a certain goal. I cannot say if you do A plus B plus C, if you spend this many hours on each of these components, that you're going to reach 2000, or you're going to become a FIDE master or a grandmaster. I really can't say any of those things. My advice, and personally coming from someone in the background who always had a focus on reaching a certain number goal, is try not to base your mindset of the game and your progress in how you go about things based on that one goal. It's always good to have that in mind, like, oh, I want to reach this title one day, that would be an awesome dream. Or if I can cross 2000 in my FIDE rating or online, that would be awesome. It's always great to have those goals, but my advice is make a study plan. Try to figure out where your weaknesses are. What level are you at right now? How much time can you put into the game studying every week? One huge thing that I always say, it's not about how many hours you spend each day studying in the game. It's about what you spend your time studying. For example, someone that has 45 minutes a day to study, one person could spend those 45 minutes playing Blitz games. The other person could spend 45 minutes doing tactics every day. And between the two people, one person is more likely to progress a lot faster than the other person. So those are my tips when it comes to that question. You really don't know. Put in the efforts, do your best, and hopefully the results will come with that. The next question that I always get is, what time control should I play to improve? Personally, for me, if you are playing online chess a lot, I would try to steer away from Blitz and Bullet if you are trying to improve. I always tell people, minimum, you want to play 10-minute games, because you at least have a little bit of time to kind of think and apply whatever you're trying to learn and put into your game. But if you're out here playing Blitz and Bullet 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute, and even less than 1 minute, it's all fun, but that's all it's really going to ever be. You're not really going to be able to learn from it. You can play Blitz here and there as a way to kind of test how fast you can get out of a certain opening or your pattern recognition during fast time controls. But especially if you're a lower rated player, I would highly suggest a minimum 10-minute game, but the longer, the better. Now, the next question that I get commonly asked has to do around openings. Either what openings should I play either in general or against a certain opening or line? Or, hey, I've been playing this opening for X amount of time, or just in general, and it's going very badly for me. One thing I'll say, and this obviously depends on your level, but if you are, I would say, just under 1,000 as a rough guideline, you should not be focusing on your openings, because most people around your level, including yourself, as much theory as you learn, you're going to just inevitably mess up the opening, because in most lines, there's so many different variations. Your opponent's probably not going to play into them either, and you'd rather be better off spending that time trying to improve bits and pieces of your entire game than investing so much time trying to memorize these lines, whether it's computer lines, whether it's sharp lines, and you're not really going to go as far memorizing all that if the chances that you get that in your own game is like less than even 5%. Now, if you're a bit higher than that, personally, what I would say is if you are blaming an opening that's not working, that's the reason why you're losing a lot of your games, most of the time it's not really the opening's fault. You either didn't really learn the opening properly and you're probably missing some very crucial ideas, or you just haven't really given it enough time to really prove itself that it can be a good opening, or it just doesn't simply fit your playing style. Are you more of a positional player? Are you more of a tactical player? Do you even know? Different openings have different pawn structures. Do you understand those pawn structures? Do you know the name of the pawn structure that you might be playing? And along with all these different pawn structures and setups, most of the time your pieces are set up in a specific way, ideally, to execute certain ideas in the middle game. Now, are you aware of those ideas that you're playing for when it comes to a middle game? Are you executing those middle games properly? Are you going through your games and deep diving into the opening and picking it apart and figuring out, okay, they played this move, which threw me off guard. What is the line here? Did I execute this idea correctly? Did I not? Sometimes the opening might just not fit your style and it might not work out, and that's totally okay. That happens to a lot of people. But I guarantee you, before you jump to that conclusion, try to ask yourself if you really gave the opening a chance before you just toss it away. And it's kind of a similar answer to people that come in and ask me, what opening should I play? I honestly don't know. If you give me a certain rating range that you're at, I can recommend openings. For example, if you're kind of newer to the game or beginner intermediate players, I think as a beginner, the London is genuinely a pretty solid opening. I know a lot of people hate on it. Personally, I think it's solid. I understand it might be boring for some people, but if you're looking for an opening that gets your pieces out fast, you don't really have to worry about many tricks and twists in the line, you want to castle and just have a solid middle game, that's a really good opening to consider. If you're trying to find an opening against the e4, personally, I will generally recommend the Caro-Kann. I think it's a very solid opening. It can be used for a ton of different levels from beginning all the way to advanced. And while there are quite a few variations and important things you need to know, from your setup to middle game plans to execute, overall I think it's a fairly simpler opening to learn. Against d4, I might recommend the Queen's Gambit Declined as black, because personally I think it's a very solid opening as well. I've taught it to a lot of my students, but personally everything that I recommend to you, if it's asked on stream, do your own research, figure out if it's going to meet your playstyle. And again, if you don't know what your playstyle is, that might be a good place to start. So the next question that I always get is a lot of people that come in and they're stuck at a rating plateau, whether it's OTB, whether it's online rating, and they're not seeming to find any progress and they're getting really demotivated. Now, plateaus for anyone is extremely demotivating. I've been there many times, and I have a lot of students that also come to me asking me that question, because it can be frustrating when you feel like you're putting in the time, you feel like you're putting in the effort, and you just don't see the results. Now, similar to a lot of other questions that have been asked today, I cannot give you a concrete solution to the problem that if you do A and B, your rating will jump and you'll break your plateau. But I can give you different ways to think about it. You could be putting in the time, you could be putting in the hours, you could be studying every single day, you could be playing every single day, but maybe that's actually the problem. Have you figured out what exactly in your game is lacking? Where are your crucial weaknesses that determine whether the game goes your way or your opponent's way? Are you able to convert when you're winning? And what is your conversion rates? Is it time for a new opening maybe? Are you learning your endgames? Are they on par to what your level should be? Are you analyzing Masters games to get different ideas of how to play the opening setups that you're playing? Are you doing too much tactics? Now, one might say, can you really ever do too much tactics? Well, if you're spending 5 out of the 6 days in a week that you study just doing tactics, you are going to drill pattern recognition, but you're also going to neglect a lot of your other parts of your game. Do you maybe want to try out a coach if you haven't already? There's a lot of great coaches out there, a lot of great coaches that share similar information down from student to student, but maybe you need someone to explain things in a different way that might make it easier for you to understand. Maybe you just need a break simply. Maybe take a 1 week break, a 1 week detox. Maybe take a whole month break. Try to really deep dive about what you could change about your study regimen and try to apply that and give yourself time to see those results potentially shine. And sometimes all you have to do is take a break, and that could be all you really needed. So for everyone, it's going to work differently, but I would say that, but for every plateau you hit, I guarantee you at least there could be one other thing that you can try to break that plateau. The next question I get a lot is, how do I study? Again, this is one of those questions that it honestly depends on the person. Everyone's study schedule is different. Most of my students are all adults, so naturally they have a lot more responsibilities than a kid would have, and therefore they have way less time to spend on studying chess. Now, if you are one of those people, you might not have as much time in a day to study chess, but you're still trying to get that daily practice in, I would set aside how much time you realistically think you might have each day for chess, and how many times a week you would like. To give a very, very brief example here, maybe set yourself 30 minutes every single day, or 1 hour every other day, and write out different categories, from tactics to openings to middle game to playing, analysis, endgames, and jot down what tools, what resources, what videos, how you want to practice each category. And every day, pick a different category to do. Find what works best for you, but play around with your schedule, because it varies for everyone. So that kind of brief outline is what I can personally recommend. And that's what I pass down to anyone that asks me that question. The next question that I get a lot is, do I have any book recommendations? Now I'll admit, I'm a bit out of the book game. I have not really owned a book in quite a while, but I do have some favorites from back when I was learning that I will always pass down to anyone. So here's a few for different levels. If you are a beginner, I highly recommend Bobby Fischer Teaches Chess. It is a beginner's tactics book, and personally I find the layout very unique, and it builds from simple patterns to more complicated ones. So if you want a really good first book for tactics, I would highly recommend that one. Now, if you're looking for a really good basic strategy book, if you are a beginner, I would personally recommend Winning Chess Strategies by Yasser Seirawan. I'd honestly also recommend it to intermediate players as well. If you are looking for a strategy book, some of the concepts could be easier for you, but it could be a refresher, and you can probably also still learn something from that book. Now, if you're an intermediate to expert level player, personally I would recommend Daniel Naroditsky's Mastering Positional Chess book. Now, he wrote this book when he was just 14 years old, so it's a little bit of a throwback, but it has a lot of entries about positional chess, from defending in worse positions to building and breaking fortresses, and tons more. Each chapter has different games and fragments of games, with half prose and half analysis. So those are just a few of my personal favorite books that I remember reading when I was younger. There's a tons more out there on the market today, and there's also a ton of online resources as well. But for those of you that prefer learning from a book, or just like collecting different books and trying them out, those are my top 3 choices. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope some of the things that I mentioned might have been helpful for you. Hopefully 1 or 2 of these tips can help you take your game to the next level. If you guys do have any more questions, definitely feel free to drop them down below, and I'll be happy to answer them. Make sure to like this video if it helped you. Click the subscribe button down below, and I'll see you guys on the next one.